Hello everyone. This is the second video in the series for the missing and murdered Indigenous women. In this video I'm going to go over some names, the ages, the fate, the last location known, which honestly will have a few that I have no idea how to pronounce, but I'm going to give it a try. The year and some notes about it, and also the suspect, or if somebody was convicted for it. And it's going to start with 1970 and it will end for 2021. Tracy Clifton, no age given, missing, Prince Rupert, 1970 to 1979. The exact date of her disappearance is unknown. She was last seen leaving her home and walking down Highway 16 after an argument with her mother. Helen Claire Frost, 17, missing, Prince George, October 1970. Left her home in downtown Prince George on the evening of October 13th, 1970, and was never seen again. She was living with her sister Sandy at the time in an apartment on the 1600 block of Queensway. Helen worked a number of jobs around this time, including a bus person at the Prince George HBC cafeteria and for a painting company, painting gas stations between Prince George and Terrace. Sandy did not report her sister missing until 15th of October, thinking at first she might have just stayed at a friend's house. Police took a missing persons report, but Sandy said she got the impression that nothing was done. Jean Virginia Jenny Samper, 18, missing, Getsegukla, yeah, that's one of the names I have no clue. 1971 of October. Jenny went missing on October 14th, 1971. Her cousin Alvin was the last person to see her near a bridge on Highway 16. He left Jenny to bike home and get his jacket. As he pedaled back to meet her, he heard a pickup door slam, but when he reached the road, there was no pickup and his cousin was gone. There was some speculation that Jenny ran away or committed suicide after her boyfriend disappeared, but her family disputes these theories. Her boyfriend's body was found drowned in the Skeena River after she disappeared. Monica Ignace, 14, homicide, Thornhill, December 1974. She was believed to be going home from school when she was last seen at 11 p.m. on December 13, 1974 in Thornhill. She was walking home alone. Her body was found in a gravel pit or a densely forested area on April 6, 1975, east of Terrace, near Kelgar Forest Service Road. Two witnesses reported seeing a car pulled over to the side of the road the night Ignace vanished. The pair saw a man and a passenger who looked like a girl inside the vehicle. Monica had been strangled. Then on this one there is, Corrine Thomas, 21, homicide, Vanderhoof, July 1976. Pregnant and just days away from giving birth, Green was struck and killed by Richard Redkop's truck as she was hitchhiking to her home on Saturday, July 3rd, 1976. Both mother and baby died. No attempt was even made to save the baby. Corrine was Indigenous and Redkop is white. Numerous witnesses reported seeing Redkop swerve to hit her. Witnesses were under the age of 16 and were taken into police custody, where after 3 hours of unsupervised interrogations, they were coerced by police to lie and say that Corrine was playing chicken with Redkop's truck. Coroner Eric Turner was satisfied that the death happened by an accident, but he later retracted his testimony after it was made public that he was let off with a lesser charge after the drunken hit-and-run death of an indigenous man, which he was responsible for 10 years earlier. Eric Turner also presided over an inquest 2 years before in the death of Larry Thomas, who was killed by a vehicle operated by Redkop's younger brother Stanley Redkop in the same road where Corrine was killed. During a public formal inquiry, witnesses confirmed that Redkop's truck actually swerved to hit her. Faye Helen Hogan, who was Redkop's companion at the time of Thomas's death, died within 2 years of Thomas's death. Despite the inquiry, the Crown did not proceed with charges. In June 1977, Corrine's father proceeded with criminal negligence charges, which may be laid by private citizens, against Richard Redkop. The charges were dismissed due to insufficient evidence. Mary Jane Hill, 31, homicide, Prince Rupert, March 1978. Mary Jane Hill was found nude along Highway 16 on 26th of March 1978, 34 kilometers or 21 miles from Prince Rupert. Cause of death was determined to be from bronchitis and bronchopneumonia as a result of manslaughter. Jean Mary Kovac, 36, homicide, Prince George, October 1981. Kovac's nude body was found in a watery ditch 40 kilometers east of Prince George on 11th of October 1981. Police said she died from a .22 caliber bullet wound to her head. Autopsy reports show she had 4 gunshot wounds to the head. Kovacs was last seen alive at about 1:30 a.m. on October 10, 1981, at the intersection of the Old Caribou Highway and the Highway 16 East. The First Nations woman was found by a man gathering firewood near Purdon Lake. Roswitha... I have no idea. The last name is Fuchsbichler. I am not even attempting that one. 13. Homicide, Prince George, 1981, November. Roswitha was reported missing at 6:45 p.m. on 14th of November, 1981. She last talked to a friend at 2 a.m. that morning. Roswitha's body was found in the wooded area north of Prince George at 9:25 a.m. on 21st of November, 1981. Edward Isaac had picked her up hitchhiking and claimed he killed her to see what it felt like. Her body had been mangled and mutilated, but she died from a single stab wound to the heart. Her body had been stripped naked, stabbed, and slashed before being dumped. Serial killer Edward Dennis Isaac was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced on 11th May 1987 to life in prison with no chance of parole for 15 years. Nina Marie Joseph, 15, homicide, Prince George, August 1982. Nina Joseph nude body was found on August 16, 1982, in Freeman Park with a cord from her jacket around her neck. Her body had been stripped naked, stabbed, and slashed before being dumped. Serial killer Edward Dennis Isaac was convicted of manslaughter in connection to Nina Joseph's death in June 1986. He was arrested on February 7, 1986, and Fort St. James may have remained unsolved if it wasn't for the testimony of Isaac's ex-girlfriend who helped him dispose of the body. Doreen Jack, 26, missing, Prince George, August 1989. The Jack family left their home on Strathcona Avenue in Prince George, heading to a logging camp where they had been offered jobs and daycare for the children. Ronald and Doreen Jack and their two children, Russell 9 and Ryan 4, were last heard from during the early hours of August 2, 1989, when Ronald called his mother in the Burns Lake area. Alberta Gail Williams, 24, homicide, Prince Rupert, August 1989. Alberta Williams went missing in the early morning hours of August 26, 1989. She was last seen at Popeyes, a since-closed pub in downtown Prince Rupert. She was seen near closing time by her sister Claudia. Alberta said that she was going to a house party. Claudia turned around and Alberta had gone. Alberta was last seen wearing a blue sweatshirt and black stretch pants with slip-on shoes. Alberta's naked body was found on September 25, 1989, about 37 kilometers, 23 miles, east of Prince Rupert, BC, near the Ty Overpass. She had been strangled and sexually assaulted. According to the field notes of RCMP officer Gary Kerr, on September 12, shortly after Alberta's body was found, bloody clothes resembling the ones she wore the night that she went missing were found near the ferry terminal in Prince Rupert. Among the items, a blue sweater, slipper-type shoes, a jumpsuit, a pillowcase, 2 pillow covers, a sock, a shoelace, and a crumpled-up piece of paper were found as well. The clothes appeared to be tossed in the bush. These clothes were seized but likely destroyed by the RCMP, as Gary said that RCMP indicated it wasn't related to Alberta Williams' disappearance. There is a strong possibility that the RCMP didn't take the evidence seriously because Williams' body had not been found. A 2006 article indicated that the family wanted Alberta to remain off the RCMP Highway of Tears list. Alberta was placed on the RCMP's E-Pana list, possibly against the family's wishes. Cecilia Ann Nicole, 15, missing, Smithers, 1989, October. Cecilia was last seen in October 1989, a year before her cousin Delphine Nicole went missing. Reports of her last known location vary. She was last reported in Smithers near Highway 16, but family reports she may have moved to Vancouver Island, and RCMP reported her last in Vancouver, but cannot confirm with family. Cecilia also had a cousin, Roberta Cecilia Nicole, who was murdered a few years after Delphine disappeared. Marnie Blanchard, 18, homicide, Prince George, 1989, November. Last seen at 2 a.m., November 22nd, 1989, leaving the Rock Pit Cabaret in Prince George. She was last seen entering a gray Toyota pickup truck with a white canopy outside the Rock Pit Cabaret. The driver had black shoulder-length hair. The truck headed west on 2nd Avenue. Her remains were discovered by cross-country skiers Will and May Peckham at about 3 p.m. on December 11, 1989, on an unmarked road west of Foothills Boulevard. The remains had been disturbed by animals and were identified by dental and X-ray records. 30-year-old serial killer Brian Peter Arp was arrested on the 26th of July 1990 in relation to her murder, and through evidence that was obtained, they didn't conclusively prove Arp's guilt, and Arp was released. He provided DNA evidence, but DNA technology wasn't adequate to determine a match. He was rearrested for the murder of Marnie Blanchard after having been arrested for the murder of Therese Humphrey over 2 years later. He was convicted of both murders using improved DNA technology. Kimberly Dumas, 0, homicide, Prince Rupert, 1990, February. On the 5th of February 1990 at approximately 5:15 a.m., Prince Rupert fire crews were called to a fire at 153 3rd Avenue West, the Brooks Bank building. When they arrived, the building was engulfed in flames. 4 people died in the blaze, including infant Kimberly Dumas, granddaughter, Helga Rochon, grandmother, Sherry Rochon, daughter, and Pauline Rochon, daughter, at the time. Helga was hosting her daughters and granddaughters in her 3rd floor apartment for an overnight visit. Law enforcement determined that the blaze was set deliberately, and that this was the second time in a few months that a blaze was set deliberately to this building. On 31st of October 1989 at approximately 2:45 a.m., the same building was set on fire, where the cause of the fire was also determined to be deliberate. Years later, the family received a letter from an anonymous source claiming to be responsible for the arson. The RCMP is not ruling out that this was a targeted attack. There was a business on the ground floor of the apartment, the Linen Closet, owned by Gina Guerin, which never reopened. Now, Helga was 45, Sherry was 26, Pauline was 19 at the time of those murders. Delphine Ann Camelia Nicole. Delphine vanished on June 13, 1990. She was last seen hitchhiking along Highway 16 and King Street on her way home to Telqua, BC. At approximately 10 p.m., she called her uncle to tell him that she was on her way from Smithers. She was last seen by her 2 friends hitchhiking in the eastbound lane of Highway 16. Delphine went missing about a year after her cousin Cecilia went missing. Delphine also had a cousin, Roberta, who was murdered a few years after Delphine disappeared. Donna Mae Charlie, 22, homicide, Prince George, September 1990. In September 1990, Donna Charlie was reported missing. She came to Prince George from Fort Ware with her boyfriend Jerry Smallslit. Both were using marijuana, magic mushrooms, and drinking. Both checked into the Sportsman Motel near the time of Charlie's death in early September. The motel owner, Richard Hunter, testified that on Saturday the motel room was in shambles and there was blood on the walls. On April 17, 1991, the police located her headless body buried in a shallow grave in a vacant lot near the Sportsman's Motel. Small Slit testified that the body was buried sometime after her death in the vacant lot across from the Ingledew playground. Small Slit's cousin Cheryl and a younger male cousin helped bury the body. Charlie's head was never found, but Small Slit testified that he buried it on Cannot Hill. In May 1991, 30-year-old Jerry Small Slit of Fort Ware was charged with the murder. It was determined in trial that Small Slit murdered Charlie in early September 1990 behind the Sportsman Motel on Queensway. Small Slit claimed that he found Charlie behind the motel and looking for very blue colored. During the trial, 2 witnesses testified that Small Slit told them he mutilated Charlie while she was still alive. Defense lawyer Larry Walker said Small Slit had a good upbringing and was a good candidate for rehabilitation. A jury convicted Small Slit of second-degree murder, but the conviction was overturned by the Court of Appeal and a new trial ordered. In May 1995, Small Slit pled guilty to manslaughter and served an additional year to the 36 months already served. Small Slit was arrested again in 2001 for another incident involving a woman in a hotel room and was sentenced as a dangerous offender for an indefinite period. Maureen Sullivan, homicide. Prince George, January 1992. Maureen was shot in January 1992 by her husband Wayne Sullivan. Wayne was drunk and became enraged when Maureen refused to enter into the threesome with Maureen and her friend Sandy. Wayne shot Maureen in the head with his handgun in their Prince George home and assaulted Sandy soon after. Wayne Sullivan was convicted of his wife's murder, but later released on March 19, 1999, upon an appeal of not criminally responsible because of mental disorder. This appeal was defended by expert witness testimony, which said that Wayne didn't know what he was doing while drunk. Wayne was restricted from consuming alcohol and was jailed in the summer of 1998 for failing to produce a blood sample. Wayne was given an absolute discharge because the Attorney General's ministry failed to produce a report stating why the restrictions should stay. Therese Humphrey, no age, homicide, Prince George, 1993, February. Humphrey was last seen intoxicated outside of the convenience store in Prince George on the 14th of February 1993. Some men reported giving her a ride, but when she couldn't remember where she lived, they drove her back to the convenience store. Her nude, partially frozen body was found on a snowbank about 50 kilometers southwest of Prince George at about 2:30 p.m. on February 14, 1993. The forensic pathologist who performed the autopsy reported that her death was caused by manual strangulation and then strangulation with a ligature similar to a shoelace found at the scene. Serial killer Brian Peter Arp was arrested on October 4, 1993 and later convicted in the murder of Therese Humphrey and Marnie Blanchard. He applied for an appeal in 1998 and it was subsequently denied. Ramona Lisa Wilson, 16, homicide, Smithers, 1994. She was hitchhiking from Smithers to attend a dance and stay with a friend in Hazleton, BC, on June 1, 1994. Ramona's remains were found April 1995 north of Yellick Road near the Smithers Airport. Several items were in a small organized pile a few feet away. Other objects nearby included a half-buried small section of rope, 3 interlocking nylon ties, and a small pink brass knuckle type water pistol. There has been no suspect in that case so far. Okay. Alright, I had to go grab my drink real quick. No. Roxanne Thiara, 15, homicide, Burns Lake, 1994, July. She went missing in Prince George on the July long weekend in 1994. She had worked as a sex worker and told a friend she was going out with a customer. She walked around the corner of the building and was never heard from again. Her body was found 17th of August 1994 in the bush along Highway 16, 6 kilometers east of Burns Lake. She knew victim Alicia Germain. No suspect in custody. Alicia Lee Germain, 15, homicide, Prince George, 1994, December. She was found murdered on December 9th, 1994, behind Hawley Road Elementary School off of Highway 16 West, outside of Prince George. Lee was stabbed to death. She knew victim Roxanne Thiara. No one is in custody for that one either. Sheila Faye Kinquan? Yeah, I'm really sorry about not pronouncing some of these names and places right, but reading it, based in Canada, being American, and trying to read it with the Spanish pronunciation, it's not working very well. 25, homicide, Prince George, 1995, April. Sheila's body was discovered on April 5th, 1995, along with the body of her daughter, Christine, in their McIntyre Crescent apartment. They had been strangled. Sheila was a student at the College of New Caledonia. Sheila was the estranged common-law wife of John Joseph Seymour. Okay, and then Christine Kinnequan, however it's said, 3, homicide, Prince George, April 1995. Strangled body found April 5th, 1995, along with that of her mother Sheila, in their Prince George apartment. Was the daughter of John Joseph Seymour. The body of John Joseph Seymour, 26, was discovered the same day as the bodies of his estranged common-law wife and daughter under the Alex Fraser Bridge in Delta. His body was found 15 meters under the bridge on a dirty parking lot. Lana Derrick, age 19, missing, Thornhill, October 1995. She was last seen October 1995 at a service station in Thornhill. One rumor said she got into the car with 2 unidentified men. I am going to go ahead and end this video with that one, because I think I have a 30-minute limit for uploads. So I'll get this one uploaded, and my next video will end all the names and dates of the victims.